For the introduction and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vijay Colaco, and I'm actually delighted to represent Intel India today, and more so the entire diversity and inclusion and equal opportunity team within Intel India. So it's really the work that they have done, and I'm actually representing them. What's really unique about Intel today is that our focus has been around creating policies, innovation practices to actually see how we can enable our women workforce, especially our women employees in this case, to actually thrive and grow at Intel. And it's always been our constant endeavor to ensure that we do what is right, try and do what is better for them, and enable an environment that they always feel that they feel psychologically safe, they feel that they can give their best. At the same time, we see them grow in the organization. And that gives us a lot of joy as an organization. But what stands out very uniquely about Intel is that HR becomes just more of a consulting arm. And we've always driven by the fact that it has to be the BU leadership across genders, that they actually go ahead and lead the path. The other ones who influence, and HR is really looking at trying to give them the direction at times, but make them own that and be able to influence what is right for their people, the organization. So it's really a beautiful partnership that comes together. And it's not just within Intel India. It's really Intel globally that I've been seeing this. And it is something that has actually taken us to the level that we are today in terms of some of our diversity and inclusion practices. And the bigger piece that I've been seeing over the last couple of months or maybe a year is that, at least in India, we've been trying to push the boundaries a bit and saying that this cannot be just more of an inward-looking practice. The whole focus has to be on how do we collaborate with the external ecosystem? That could be with the academia, that could be with organizations in the external environment, or even with people generally to just get a pulse and a flavor of how we can be truly representative of the ecosystem and try and drive and influence certain policies that could not only be good for Intel, but even for the ecosystem and other organizations. So having said that, let me quickly walk you through in terms of how I see D&I within Intel and how does really influence or zero down on our women workforce, right? So if you look at all of the ERG vectors or the diversity and inclusion vectors within Intel, they do touch every single employee, and more so it touches even women employees, right? So the broader umbrella for the entire initiative is something called as being WISE. And WISE stands for women inclusion and social equity. And that's been our focus in terms of how do we make it more inclusive for our women workforce and bring in that social equity as well. So whether you talk about IDAN, which is our Intel Disability and Access Network, which focuses on disability inclusion, or be it the entire iGlobe initiative, which is the one that focuses on the LGBTQ plus community. And then we also focus on the fact that we need to bring in more of mental inclusion in the organization, and also focus on a representation of women in our organization through our Women at Intel network. And this representation is not just at a junior workforce. The whole intent is to how we build a very, a broad, diverse workforce, which is represented women at all levels. And we're also building a senior leadership pipeline that actually can lead the organization. In fact, I'm really proud to say that the Intel India site president is a woman, and she leads the organization very effectively in partnership with some of her counterparts across genders. And then there's a lot of focus on supplier diversity. The intent here is to see how we can actually build more entrepreneurs across different diverse workforce and largely around our women workforce, where we invest in terms of building an ecosystem for them where they can partner with Intel and provide these services as well. So it's a lot of entrepreneurship that we try and invest globally as well as in India. And the new chapter that we've created is veterans. So we're focusing on how do we work closely with the armed forces and folks who want to come back and join us, right, and be a part of the corporate workforce, and how Intel can enable that, which also touches a lot of women employees through the entire process. So all of this comes under this broad umbrella of being WISE. And I cannot just say that there's only a woman-oriented initiative they're looking at. It touches across the entire broad spectrum where every woman employee and other employees within Intel are influenced. And the whole focus on making diversity and inclusion a way of life, where we bring in a lot of equal opportunity to the entire spectrum. So having said that, how does this play into some of the policies that we have within Intel? Let's start with the fundamentals. And some of you may even relate to what I'm sharing today because most of it is something which most organizations do, but there are some unique standouts for Intel as well. The foundational aspect is that every woman employee would be provided access or an infrastructure that caters to their needs when they really need it. Starting off with baby rooms on every single floor in the organization across different sites. Ensuring that we're able to provide, special parking services for our protected mothers or expecting mothers in this case. We've tried to enable creche facilities in some of our sites, and the sites where we cannot, we've gone ahead and built in some kind of a creche reimbursement program. And this is across gender. So basically, if they have a child and they want to put the child in the creche, then we enable that for them as well through a reimbursement program. We focus on giving them a gender neutral washroom today, and that's available for all genders. And of course, security post 8 p.m. working hours, which most organizations do offer, and that's something which we continue even within Intel. Additionally, from a process and guideline standpoint, we offer them a 26-week maternity leave, and for paternity it would be 6 weeks. But what's also unique here is that commissioning mothers would get about 26 weeks as well. And for miscarriages, we go ahead and give them about 6 weeks leave. And there's also an inclusion of tubectomy leave. We also have the insurance cover in terms of fertility-related procedures that we offer. So as and when there is a need, the insurance cover kicks in and we support our women employees. But what's unique here is the gradual return to work. We do care. We do care in a way that we want to enable a kind of environment where our women employees can feel comfortable coming back slowly and gradually. And sometimes your 26 weeks may just not be enough. And sometimes we say, hey, you have to give them an extension, and we go about doing that by providing another 1 month, either part-time or full-time paid off if they want to, but that's up to a month. And if there's additional time that's requested, then of course that is the manager's discretion in consultation with HR, and we try and enable that as well for our women employees. And of course, the additional benefit of providing sick leave that's available for all employees agnostic of gender, but that's something that can also kick in, especially when our women employees need it the most. Moving on to flexible working, and I've seen the flexible working been something which has been a big demand, especially during the pandemic. And today, I think it's gender agnostic. I think all of us do require that kind of a flexi working hours. But let me start, first of all, with our women employees. Again, when they're coming back, as I mentioned to you, that we give them that 1 month extension. But if there's an additional need, we're more than happy to support them with flexi hours. Now, many times we've had managers coming back and saying that it has a productivity impact. We've got to ensure what's needed for the business. But I think at the end of the day, it has to be a beautiful balance between the kind of talent we want to retain, the kind of message we want to send out, at the same time also ensuring that we meet the end goal of our business as well. And I think when all of these three things come together, a lot of our managers are able to understand that better and provide the flexi timings for our employees as well. More so, I've seen the need during the pandemic time. I think the initial phases or the waves that we saw, a lot of our women employees reached out to seeking that flexible hours, but we also started seeing that across genders. And so one of the things we've done is to sensitize a lot of managers to understand that everybody has a personal need here, and we need to be able to flex in a way that we provide enough and more support for our employees. And also we brought in the pandemic leave option, which again is open to all genders in this case, where they need to really take care of themselves or their families, and that's available for the utilization of our employees within the organization. Now, what's unique in Intel is the gender pay parity. We do this religiously every year globally and in partnership with Mercer. We want to ensure that we minimize the gap as much as possible, and when we have an opportunity, we grab it. So it has been a constant effort throughout the process to try and see how do we minimize that entire gap, and India certainly has benefited from it over a period of time. So that's one unique piece that I see as a standout that we do religiously within Intel. Apart from some of these pieces, we continue to keep our focus in terms of our women representation, like I mentioned, and we always want to be ahead of the curve in terms of trying to show that we bring in more of our women employees. We also focus on the entire capability aspect, of course, that's one big piece. But the other aspect is how do we grow our women leadership into very promising senior roles. And over a period of time, we've seen success in terms of how we've converted a lot of our technologists who are women, as well as a VP population that we have today that leads the site. Like I mentioned, our site president is a woman, and we have a lot more in the executive leadership team committee. So these become more systemic in terms of the way we approach in terms of tracking and the policies and procedures. But there are additional innovative approaches that we've been seeing, and I call this a secret sauce. And one that we've been trying hard to focus on and cater to both within the organization as well as in the external ecosystem. The first one is in terms of how do we enable a very strong pipeline of women candidates into the organization. And unfortunately today, even if you look at our entire demographics and the population of women in graduate schools or engineering schools, the representation is only about 25%. And that further narrows down, especially when they have to get into the workforce. And so one is we want to start going back to the universities and schools to start influencing this pipeline that can be a future workforce for us. And we've done something called as a unique university school initiative under a broad banner called Vriddhi. So targeting the third year engineering graduates, we trained about 800 plus girl students in 2021 around some of the key STEM skills that we had to actually focus on. We went ahead and did that in partnership with a vendor organization externally. But now we've taken a step ahead to go and touch women and future workforce in the grade 10 and 11 category, so they can start thinking about some of these as a future pipeline for themselves as and when they want to get into the workforce. So that's a unique initiative where we try to upskill a lot of our future workforce in our women category. The next one is the Bandhan program. This is where we focus a lot in terms of parenthood, especially after the child is born, and in terms of how do you connect, how do you ensure that there's this tie between the mother and the child, but most importantly, it's also about the relationship that we want to build as a family. So it's open to all genders, and people can attend this program, but that's something that we do regularly on a yearly basis where people actually benefit from. And of course, the whole parent-child bonding exercises that comes into this entire program that we run as Bandhan. Another unique initiative is the More Mentoring piece of it, which is where we've actually leveraged a lot of our women who've gone through this entire process of being a mother and actually coaching and mentoring protected mothers or people who are on the way to becoming mothers, and ensuring that they're able to share the best practices, they're able to share the experiences, they're able to emotionally connect with the individual. So what happens is when they go on the maternity leave, the return is a lot more successful for us in the sense we don't see too many breaks. We see people coming back. In fact, women employees have chosen to come back because they've heard about the experiences the others have had in the process. So that's something which we've been focusing on to ensure that we try and give all that we can, even through our existing employees, through their experiences, back to some of our women who are on the way to maternity. The Women Returnship Program. This is more to do with women on break, and we have two initiatives. One is called Boomerang. Boomerang is more around women who were at Intel, who took a break, and the intent to see how we can bring them back. That's one approach. The other one is Home to Office, and this is specifically for people not just within Intel, but across the board. If you've seen good talent and people have taken a break, we want to go ahead and see how we can upskill them first, because when they've taken a break, many of them feel they've lost out in terms of the skills. We try and enable that through some of our programs that's available to them. And then, of course, when we see the right opportunities, we encourage them to apply, and then we attract them into Intel. And of course, they also become equally available for other companies as well, because this program is not just limited only for Intel folks. And then finally, on the women leadership and tech leadership programs that we drive, as I mentioned to you, our focus has been on how do we drive a very strong pipeline of senior women leaders within Intel. And we drive some programs exclusively to develop our women professionals. So one is the Accelerated Women Leadership Program that has a tie between the manager, within the employee, and the skip level to ensure there's enough and more mentoring, there's guidance around projects, there's guidance around the career path, and we work towards enabling successful women leaders through that particular program. And the latest one being the Women Leadership League program that's given to the next level of our women employees who have a certain runway to becoming leaders, but certainly something that they benefit from so that they know that we are invested in them in terms of their career growth path as well. So these two initiatives have lent towards the success of many women leaders, and we've seen success rates with the kind of conversion in terms of our promotion rate as well within Intel. Now, while these are very specific and fall under the broad category of what we want to do for our women employees, as I mentioned to you, all of the vectors within our diversity and inclusion initiatives, they actually touch the lives of our women employees. So the first one that we're focusing on this year is around veterans, and we want to ensure that we are able to bring back the workforce that wants to work with us from the armed forces. And we're trying to design a program that's exclusive for them and try and see how we can attract. Of course, it's gender agnostic, but of course, if we can bring in more women from the armed forces, we'd be delighted. And there's a program that's being initiated this year that will go out very soon. The other one is the people with disabilities, and this is to do with an exclusive insurance coverage that we offer them. Of course, we have the standard insurance offer, but we also try and see how we can add certain additional aspects if people need in terms of a support. We try and enable that for our people with disabilities. And over the last 2 years, I've seen there's a lot of focus in terms of mental health support, because that's been a big demand, and that you could blame because of the pandemic or the very fact that people's lifestyle has changed. There has been a big need, and we've actually given a lot of focus around making that available through our employee assistance program, which is EAP, or through our modern health app that we've institutionalized, where people can access any help that they need as and when they need. The other one is on the LGBTQ plus community, and we've actually gone ahead and enabled an insurance for gender reassignment. And the good news is that we have one employee who actually took advantage of this. I would not be able to share any further details in this particular case, but that story could be out sometime soon. But certainly one that has benefited an employee, and something that we're extremely proud of, that we made it available within Intel. And I also told you about the fact that we try and enable a lot of future entrepreneurs across different diverse workforces. And one of the things that has been to invest a lot of funds in terms of our diversity suppliers. We've encouraged a lot of women entrepreneurs, and there's been an investment of about $1 billion. This would be across Intel. But the focus is on trying to see how do we encourage more and more entrepreneurs and have them support not only Intel, but organizations across the board. So that's been in terms of the intersectionality piece, where we've tried to see how all of the vectors influence our women, but at the same time, they also go and influence the diverse vectors that we want to influence across the workforce within Intel. Finally, for Intel, it's no more just about what we do inside the organization. I think the broader objective is how we can collaborate. We have been actually extending ourselves towards saying, why don't we invite more companies, more academic institutions, more people to join us, and we become a force that's trying to influence the overall ecosystem. And that can only happen when hands join together, and we've been successful. In fact, in the last 1 year, we've had a lot of organizations partnering with us and collaborating towards doing something different and unique in the D&I space. So overall, our intention is that we build a consortium under this broad umbrella called Women Inclusion and Social Equity, and try and see how we can build an inclusive space for them within organizations, not just Intel, but within organizations even outside of Intel. And more so, we were showing progressive policies that enables a healthy workforce for women to thrive in and for everybody else to thrive in when we put them under different diversity vectors. But the intent overall is to bring in a collaborative effort where we all come together. So in a nutshell, Intel today, while we started off doing a lot of initiatives internally, we've started seeing that when we collaborate with the government, with the academia, with other companies, we've seen better ideas, we've seen better success rate, and at the end of the day, I think collectively, we're giving back to the society as well. So that's been a success journey. In the last couple of years, we continue to focus on doing that better. And as I told you, we have a very committed workforce within Intel to make this a big success for us. So on that note, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions, but that's what I want to showcase today as part of what we do within Intel and some of our policies and innovative activities that I thought I would share in this forum today. Ekta, I'm done, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you so much for sharing your insightful presentation and your learnings with us. 2 points that really, I was amazed. You talked about creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So it was really impressive. And second, the importance Intel is giving for mental health issue.
That's correct.
That was really great. Okay. I will just take a question from our audience. And okay, I think this comes from someone who wants to or has a startup. So she asks, what is your biggest piece of advice for getting started with D&I policies?
What is my best advice? I think, first of all, we're more than happy to go ahead and partner with you and do some sharing. So, let me welcome you with open arms to say we are happy to share, because there is no one certain advice to say you can start from here. But I think the best way to do that is by actually collaborating and working with organizations. And the very fact that you've joined this forum today in itself tells you that we are open to sharing some of our best practices. Because when you start from scratch, you may find it very difficult. We already have some established practices. So let's join hands. More than happy to share what we have. But I think what's more important is look at some of the policies that are existing today, because some of them are statutory norms that you need to follow. So that's important. Now, what makes organizations stand out, which I think even your startup can stand out, is by looking at how do you build that edge? How do you create a differentiator? And today it's all about that. All organizations want to create a differentiating aspect to attract talent. So I think you are in a very unique place. For Intel, it does take a lot of push sometimes to really go back and influence and saying we want to bring in a new policy. We want to bring in a change. We want to up-level this and do a little differently. But I think you are uniquely poised today as a startup to say, hey, why don't we think a little different and maybe learn from others, but at the same time, try and see what you want to do as a differentiation for your organization that makes you uniquely positioned. So startup one with cross-sharing, we are more than happy to do best practice sharing. And the second one clearly is about the fact that how do you want to build an edge basis what you're already hearing for your organization to stand out uniquely. That would be my advice.
No. Thank you. Thank you for taking that question. We have another question, and she asks, do you feel we need to move from women-friendly policies to family-friendly policies?
That's a great question. In fact, I just got off a call this morning, and you saw that I just presented a policy around commissioning mothers. My question today really, and I'm being very open about the question I'm asking, it's commissioning mothers in this case, but what if there's a single parent? What if anybody from across the gender, I'm not going to specify male, female in that sense, but anybody who's a single parent and wants to be a commissioning parent, can that be available as 26 weeks? Can we look at, when it comes to parenting leave, in this case, paternal leave, can that be 26? Because if you look at it, the pandemic has taught us a lot. It's all about sharing the workload now. And I've seen that with at least the teams that I've been working today, it's everybody actually partaking in these activities at home. So great question. And the answer is yes, we should be looking at more family-oriented policies, which actually touches across the board. And I think that can only happen when we start thinking a little innovatively. And the interesting part is it's always the first mover advantage. Sometimes we're wondering which company is doing first, and then we go and do it. So maybe sometimes you could be that company who's making that change as well.
Right, rightly said. Okay. Thank you, Vijay, for taking all those questions. It's now time to move for our next speaker.
Thank you, Ekta.
Okay, sorry, Vijay. Just a moment. I'm so sorry. Okay, we have one more question on attrition. Can I take that one?
Sure, please go.
Okay, so it says that on the attrition higher for women, as per R&D, single women have more mental health issues. Any innovative practices here?
Yeah, the innovative practices that at least I can tell you within Intel, by the way, our attrition and diversity, when I say diversity in Intel, we largely measure women in this case, has always been lower than the counterpart. And for a couple of reasons. Number one is I think it's extremely important that every single employee is taken care of. So the first thing that we do within Intel is something called as stay interviews. And it's a very unique term called stay interviews, but to be very honest, it's called proactive early warning indicators that you start seeing, and then you start having conversations with your employee. That's the first thing. A manager is the closest contact with the employee, and the manager needs to have that relationship with the employee. That's number one. Number two, go with the mindset to understand where the employee is and try and help support. Now, many a times, you may not be able to guess what the problem is because many employees don't open up. And you've got to ensure that your organization has enough and more. We have the employee assistance program within Intel. We have the mental health app. We've got mental health ambassadors within Intel. So people can reach out to people beyond the managers. And sometimes when the manager's citing and seeing some of these, reach out to HR and talk to HR and say, hey, I think I'm sensing something. The employee may not be able to open up in front of me. Are there avenues that maybe slowly I can nudge? Nudge is a unique concept that we started using to be able to influence where employees need that help. So unique methods would be having those conversations on a regular basis, more so now because we're all virtual and the stress is a lot more. Two is having a kind of an ecosystem with certain initiatives, right, from your employee assisted programs to certain apps that you can enable, or maybe just mentors that you can reach out to and be that regular counsel for a lot of our women employees. But I think the intent should be you're doing it because you want to help and support. Many times we do that because we just want to retain the employee. The objective is focus on the psychological aspect of the employee, try and see how you can help, and you will have a long-term employee versus just focusing on the retention aspect of saying, I just need to save this person. So it's really about how you approach it and enable an ecosystem. That's the way I look at it, Ekta.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time and thank you for the questions.
Thank you so much. We will move to our next speaker now. And for all attendees, keep sending your questions in the chat box. Just okay, joining us next is Sonali Mungale, Director, People Capability, Mastercard Incorporated. Welcome, Sonali. And the stage is all yours. Just a second, I will just give the spotlight. I will share the spotlight with you.
First, the mandatory questions. Am I audible?
Audible and visible.
I just needed to check I was not on mute. Okay, great. So let me share my screen.
Sure.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Great. First of all, a very, very warm welcome to all my audience here. It's a pleasure to talk about the Mastercard's diversity and equity inclusion policies with all of you. And a big thanks to Jyotsna for providing this platform. I personally feel these kind of platforms help us amplify best practices, good practices, and of course, learn from each other. So with that, let me first give you a context about what I'm going to talk about. Mastercard has been, over the period that I have been with the organization, strongly amplifying the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda for, for the organization. There has been a very genuine and intent to ensure that the diversity, equity, and inclusion culture is built. And personally, that kind of culture can only be built when we have the right practices and policies around it. And that's what I'm going to be talking about is the Mastercard diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, which actually makes Mastercard be where it is. In fact, I must admit that our employee engagement scores around the inclusion has always been the best across the globe. And also that one of the reasons for being able to do that is because our policies are just not policies, but are practiced in real intent and spirit in the organization. With that, let me just talk about the foundation which builds our diversity, equity, inclusion practices and policies. Something what we call as Mastercard Way. A Mastercard Way essentially has 3 pillars. And if you can see this, it's be inclusive, which is the strongest pillar, I would say that, which is the foundation when we talk about the DEI, unlocking potential. And the last but not the least, one second, is being a force for good. The force for good essentially is something which we believe every employee is an ambassador for a cause of purpose and a social impact. And that also is an underpinning pillar to our decency quotient. With that, we talk about the 5 behaviors which Mastercard employees demonstrate in their day-to-day activities. And we believe that these also stand out as we talk about creating an inclusive organization, is owning it, simplifying the kind of work we do, and of course, uncomplicating things. demonstrating a sense of urgency, having a thoughtful risk taking, being visibly courageous, and relentless focus on our customers and consumers. Now, this is what we call our base for being a DEI focused organization. Being inclusive is something which every employee is expected to demonstrate. And further, the practices, policies that we inculcate create our organization to be inclusive. So, how or what basically constitutes of our practices? Mastercard has this flagship initiative called Urja. Urja is a constellation of all the practices that we do, initiatives we do, which basically creates an organization with being DEI focused. So, what is Urja? Urja is a flagship initiative which talks about our DEI initiatives. Why? Because we believe that there are a variety of initiatives which are being driven in the organization, and we would need to create a sense of intent and purpose, and also ensure that employees are able to relate to what we are doing, and every employee speaks that language of what is being DEI focused. How do we do that? Basically, we look at doing it through the five pillars or five paramount anchors that I'd call about. One is basically talent attraction, talent retention, talent development, rewards, benefits, and well-being in organization culture building. So these are the five pillars across which our various initiatives for diversity have been created and driven over a period of last couple of years to ensure that we certainly have an organization which is very DEI friendly. So what are these what are these couple of initiatives that I'm going to talk about? Starting with career development initiatives. So when we look at specifically diversity, equity, and inclusion, our career development initiatives have certain key programs like Vote for Impact, like Women Who Lead, or like the mentoring initiatives. These initiatives basically talk about ensuring that we are able to create an organization where our women leaders are able to move forward, see a career, and grow in the organization. I must admit that the organization has been very, very serious about driving career development initiatives for professional growth of women. So, for example, the Board for Impact initiative. We have a set of not-for-profit organizations where we invite women leaders to be a part of that and drive the agenda of basically being able to navigate what's happening in the world, and thus learn about how it means to build leadership at that level. That is one. The mentoring initiatives at the middle level at the organization, we invite women employees to seek mentors across the globe. And we have a wonderful platform called Unlocked, where women employees can actually raise their hands, speak about which kind of mentors, what kind of mentors they would like to basically connect with, and their profiles are also mentioned on our Unlock platform, and then they can basically look at building a relationship and ensure that they are able to develop the skills that they would like to move to the next level. So these are a couple of initiatives around the career development piece. Women in Tech initiative. Uh, we strongly believe that apart from leadership development, it is also important for a tech organization like ours to enable women, provide platforms where they are able to learn and share about the new age practices. And while this is not just restricted to women, it is very gender neutral, but we also encourage Women in Technology initiative to bring in more and more women to build their careers in the tech space. And we have our senior leaders, our technologists who come forward. We invite women leaders from external organizations to come forward and talk about the new age technologies through which our colleagues can learn and, of course, grow and build their skills in the tech space. Employee and Family Resource Program. This program is created to ensure we are able to provide a confidential support to our women employees, and of course, and as I said, it's gender neutral, but for our colleagues to ensure that they are able to speak in confidentiality with trained counselors as and when there's a need. Yeah, we know the era that we are living in. The last 2 years have been certainly a testing time for all of us with various kind of stressors which have come across. We've seen that Employee Family Resource Program has been something very sought after, specifically for women who have been juggling with multiple priorities, not only at the domestic front, but also the professional front. And to ensure that they are able to ease out from these kind of stressors, we provide free counseling services. Employees can just raise an request and connect with professionally trained counselors where they can speak with and basically understand how they can navigate their situations. Care 9 program. One of the things Mastercard strongly believes is in creating communities. Communities help each other understand, bring in a sense of cohesiveness, and also we find somebody who's in a similar situation like ours to basically help us basically respond to our questions, which we would be hesitant to ask somebody else. So Care 9 program is a community engagement initiative where we look at women or men who are in the family stage to come forward and create a community where they can exchange their thoughts, learnings, questions as they look at building their families. This is also a forum where we bring in medical advisors, we share articles, we talk about things which employees should take care of during their family planning stage. Pay and equity leadership engagements. Mastercard has always been a strong proponent of pay for equity. We ensure, like any other organization, progressive organization, I would say that we ensure that we partner with best of the best organizations in comp and ben space to ensure we are paying equally for the role irrespective of the gender. Not only this, we ensure the benefits are also similar, and we have a strong amplification coming from our leaders, ensuring that pay for equity is something which we strongly propagate and believe in. Whether I'll just like to take a pause here and share that pay for equity is just not an exercise that we do. We ensure every process of ours in the organization has this. For example, during a year-end cash cycle, there's a specific focus to look at slice and dicing of equity of gender and how they are placed from a compensation perspective. We believe that every stage, whether it's our year-end cycle, whether it's a talent management cycle, whether it's your performance management cycle, there is a need to deep dive and see how we are placing our gender in terms of the equity, in terms of the talent, in terms of the performance reviews, just to ensure there's no uncalled or unconscious bias which has creeped in. In fact, there's a good amount of time invested during the year-end cycle, that's our compensation cycle, to ensure we are able to see the parity happening there. Not only that, we every quarterly go and review our promotion cycles and see how the growth patterns are from an internal job positioning perspective, from a point of view of basically growth perspective, from a point of view of basically looking at the salary perspectives. So there's a very detailed and quarterly review which is being done to ensure we do not give space to any kind of unconscious bias there. Sense of purpose, MCK has volunteering leaves and matching gifts. Something very close to my heart, and of course, something which we shared in the beginning as well, is a sense of giving back, sense of purpose, and force for good. Organization strongly believes that there is every employee is basically an ambassador for force for good, and we need to provide them those kind of opportunities where they can go and give back. So in this kind of program, what we offer is employees with 5 days of giving leaves, where employees can choose the purpose they would want to go and contribute to and do a community service. Business resource groups, BRGs that we popularly call them as, has a couple of pillars or a couple of forums which drive inclusion in true sense. One is Women Leadership Network. Second is Pride. Third is Salute. Salute is a forum where we encourage veterans to join back in the organization and create a community for them. Pride is a forum where we look at bringing in the LGBTQ community and create an environment where they feel safe. This is also a forum where we have people who are passionate about this cause, basically looking at creating a safe and a secured working environment for LGBTQ come together. And Women Leadership Network is certainly a forum where we have women colleagues coming together and amplifying the cause of women advancement. Um, in fact, through the networks like Women Leadership Network, Pride Network, or Salute, there are a lot of initiatives which are done to educate our colleagues on what basically this means. What are the unsaid nuances which could create an uncomfortable situation? How do we build in the sensitivity? I would like to add a step further. There are regular webinars which are conducted, panel discussions which are conducted. We invite leaders from the outside world to come and talk about what are the causes or what are the reasons, what we can address to create an environment which is safe, secure, and friendly for all these kind of communities. At the end of the day, we believe that an employee who works in the company should have a safe working environment. And we need to provide them all kind of resources which will make them contribute in the meaningful sense to the organization. In fact, just taking a pause here, our, our Women Leadership Network also drove an inclusion week in the month of October, which is called the Inclusion Month, to ensure that inclusion is understood in the right essence and spirit. It is basically known, and we invited leaders from the outside world. We invited leaders from the industry. In fact, we also had workshops on unconscious biases and dealing with them by creating conscious inclusion to ensure that inclusion just doesn't remain a beautiful word, but it actually is something which translates into actions at every employee level. Then we come talk about inclusive family building program. So we believe that family building is a parental initiative, and we offer initiatives and offer benefits for adoption, surrogacy, and fertility for the employees. Fertility benefits for the employees. Flex work, work from anywhere, work from elsewhere, and Flex Fridays are certain initiatives which we strongly propagate for creating flexibility for an employee to choose what is comfortable for him, her, to look at working from the locations. And of course, it doesn't intrude in the way in his personal or personal responsibilities. Flex work certainly is work from anywhere program that we have. So employees can choose where they want to, which locations they want to work with, what is the timing which is basically suitable. Work from elsewhere is our 4 weeks, which we offer employees to choose that they can work from any location, irrespective of what role they are in, but then they can choose whichever locations they want to work in the country. Flex Fridays. So we really understand how our weeks are packed, and many of us here on the call would understand that our weeks are absolutely packed, and especially with this entire work from home during this COVID times, the juggling between the personal and the professional responsibilities has been challenging. And being on the virtual platform throughout. Flex Fridays is something which Mastercard introduced in 2020. It is something which has been appreciated by colleagues a lot. Is talking about offering 4.5 days of the Fridays post lunch. We provide that particular Friday off for employees to look at their personal development. So post 2 o'clock on Fridays, employees can basically dedicate that time as meeting free time, and they can look at what they could learn. They could basically look at using our various learning platforms like the DivHErSity, and understand whether they would want, what kind of options they could look for their own career development. So Flex Fridays is basically the Friday, the last part of the Friday, where employees can choose to do what they want to do, and it's essentially meeting free for us. India Women Returnship Program. Lot has been spoken about the Women Returnship Program. Mastercard also strongly amplifies women coming back after family sabbatical. And we have India Women Returnship Program, which started in 2017 for us. Today, we have a cohort of more than 100 women who have joined us. There is a strong initiative to ensure that we are able to smoothly transition the the coming back to work after a family break, and women who have taken sabbaticals for their family reasons. In fact, the first 6 months are dedicated on bringing them up to speed. And I must admit, this has been one of the most successful programs that we have had. The cohort that has joined us since 2017 have been our role models and have been our amplifiers for the success of this program. Last but not the least is India Alumni Network. So Mastercard created India Alumni Network to basically invite women who left the organization to come back, and also the boomerangs or leverage on their network. However, eventually we realized that this is a network where all our colleagues wanted to basically be part of. So this has become a gender neutral platform, and we look at inviting employees join back Mastercard, one, and also invite employees to look at their network and amplifying Mastercard culture and having their network join Mastercard. So in short, when I talk about the diversity practices and policies, these are the various initiatives which are under the flagship program called Urja. Urja is basically a constellation of all these initiatives that we have done to create Mastercard a DI-centric organization. With this, Ekta, I take a pause and pass on the dice to you.
Thank you, Sonali. Thank you so much for sharing your and Mastercard's Urja with us.
I would stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm having a challenge. Yeah. Yeah.
It's done? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay, so we will start with Q&A thing. Okay, Q&A round. So we have a question from a woman in tech.
Yeah.
So, okay, so she asked that it's very visible that we have a gap between supply and demand when it comes to hiring women in technology. Do you see this gap being reduced in any near future?
Absolutely. And there's a very fantastic program, because I missed touching on that during my conversation in the flow of all the beautiful initiatives that we do. There's something called as Girls for Tech that Mastercard runs, and I'll also address the second part of the question, which believes in encouraging the youngsters and the girl students, especially, to understand what STEM is and creating basically attraction for the subject. And we call this, and in fact, we are looking at basically touching 3 lakh women, girls, to enroll for this program, where they could understand about the entire STEM initiative and get a liking for the subject. So coming back, I think initiatives like this support in ensuring that women choose, youngsters rather, when I'm saying women, I mean girl students, choose to look at creating their careers in STEM. The entire issue is that, there is always a space where children don't see role models. Girls don't see role models of technologists or technocrats who are women, right? These initiatives bring forward role models whom they can look at and aspire for to become, get into the space of technology. So I think these kind of initiatives certainly would go a long way in bridging the gap between demand and supply. Personally, with my experience so far on visiting campuses and basically going in the external world from a hiring perspective, I do see what was there 5 years back and what is today. There is a difference. So there's certainly a gap which is getting reduced, and I think these kind of initiatives will further add on to reducing those gaps. I hope I've answered the question.
I hope so, sure. And it's so good to know that that gap is reducing. We are on the positive side.
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay, we have another question, and it's on diversity policies. So Asta asked, what would you say is the most difficult part of implementing a D&I policy?
I personally feel that the most important part, I wouldn't say difficult part, I would say important part, is getting the buy-in, right? Getting a buy-in throughout the organization and making sure that every member of the organization sees a value in it. For me personally, that's the most challenging and the difficult part, and I think that's the most important piece as well. Providing value in terms of why we're doing, why we want to basically do a diversity, equity, and inclusion organization, why you want to see it as a centric to the organization growth is the most challenging part. And I think that can be addressed easily. Like organization like Mastercard has been working tirelessly in this front. We have been having a continuous conversation, leadership dialogues, ensuring we amplify the cause, we are able to show the impact, our attrition rates, our retention rates, our career advancement percentages for the genders have been talking about why it means to basically drive the DEI agenda for the organization. So bottom line, I think creating a buy-in within the organization, ensuring that every stakeholder sees a value in driving DEI culture is the most important part.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonali, for taking those questions. It's time, I think, to move to our, we don't have any more questions, so I think we can move to our next speaker.
Thank you, Ekta.
Thank you, Sonali, so much for taking your time.
My pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. We will take a moment and just be back. We can start this at sharp 2:30. Tarishi, hope that is fine for you.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, okay, sure. Just a moment. Hi, Tarishi. I think we can start now. Okay.
Give me a minute and let me just present. I can share my screen, right?
No, just a moment. I will just introduce you. Okay. So we have next
Only
speaker.
5 minutes ahead of time, though. That's okay?
Yeah. If it's fine for you, we are okay.
It's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's get started. So next speaker joining us is Tarishi Kamra, Associate Director, HR Lead, Talent Management OD, PepsiCo India Holding Private Limited. Welcome, Tarishi, and the stage is all yours. Just give me a moment so that I can put you on spotlight. Okay. Yeah, the stage is all yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tarishi. I lead talent management OD for PepsiCo India. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of the diversity-specific policies that make us inclusive as an employer. Give me a minute and I'll start flashing my screen. Ikta, can you tell me if you can see the screen?
Yeah, it's visible. You can just make full screen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I first wanted to take a minute and just talk about the overall DEI journey that we have been through. And we didn't start this journey, a couple of years back. We actually started this journey more than a decade ago. So we started this journey back in 2005, and the idea was to build awareness. I think the first question that our head of the company had asked at that point of time for India was how does diversity really lead to us from a business perspective, right? So the different perspective is where your consumer is. I mean, it's actually a lot of women who do the grocery shopping as well. And, a lot of your consumers, you're not really getting that input if you don't have equal representation in your employee base itself. So your consumer, your customers, it has to be equally spread, which is where we started the DEI journey from. And from 2005 to 2007, it was all about just building awareness. Then we moved on to actually looking at how are we really balancing work life between 2008 to 2012 and really sustaining that internally. Then driving the mindset changes, right? Like the external partnerships. We looked at partnering across organizations and creating mentoring platforms from almost 2012 to 18, looking at inclusion across levels. And then really looking at last year, really looking at the LGBTQ AI plus inclusion. And that's really helped us build our policies very, very customized to our diversity friendly focus as well. Looking at how we really moved ahead, and this was one of the first moves that we had done back in 2014, and this was much ahead of the legislation mandate which had actually come in. We made our maternity leave 6 months, much ahead of the legislation mandate coming in. We right now have an expenses paid for childcare support for crèche as well as virtual childcare. Partly paid, partly fully paid. There's a mix out there. And we're looking at even enabling flexible work options for returning moms as well as, of course, anybody going through any kind of a life stage change. So it's highly supportive of returning mothers, and PepsiCo is pretty much known for that policy ahead of its curve. From a paternity perspective as well, and I'm using the terms as they are coined in the industry typically. From a paternity perspective as well, we have been leading the industry with almost 12 weeks paternity leave. We launched that back in 2018. In our industry, it was pretty much ahead of the curve. This is flexible, so it can be actually taken in tranches of at least 7 days in the first year of childbirth. So it needs to be, say, basically minimum a week, but in the first 1 year, you can spread it out to actually see on how the 12 weeks really need to be supportive. Now, how do people end up using it is actually tying it back to the mothers who are, the spouses who are working. When they are joining back, they end up taking more. So it kind of gives them a lot of flexibility to really move around their, family plans accordingly. We have more PEP dads utilizing the onset crèche, and this has been really pleasing to see that the on-site crèche has been inclusive of parents. It's gender agnostic. You have parents across men and women, and the kids are just a side to really, they really make it very, very pleasant to be in office. We moved ahead in the journey with the LGBTQI plus inclusion last year. We made our parental leave gender agnostic. So it's not maternity and paternity anymore, it's parental leave. It's gender agnostic, and we're actually calling out that, one, you don't need to identify your genders. It's about primary caregiver and secondary caregiver. So birthing parents naturally become the primary caregivers, but the other situations also where you can be the primary caregiver can arise in either LGBTQI plus situation or live-in situation. So it's very it's very customized according to people's preferences, genders, expression, and life stages. We've been able to take care of the childcare support. We've been able to take care of insurance inclusion for the live-in partners as well, without really identifying the gender. Moving on, PepsiCo has been ahead of the curve in terms of flexible work locations as well. So in terms of a person doesn't really need to be based in Dubai, say, to do a sector role. A person doesn't need to be based in New York to be doing a global role. We had launched a location-free policy back in 2018. It enabled advancement of careers across, with geographic exposures, despite your life stages, despite your mobility challenges, gave the right set of experiences to the right people, unlocked careers for us as an organization unlock careers for employees across functions. Roles, of course, were governed by certain defining criteria in terms like, you can't have frontline roles really location free, for an example. So, of course, those guardrails exist, but we have been able to advance our flexible work policy, long ahead of COVID times, if I may say so, whereby people have realized that, okay, yes, remote working can really be, successful. Moving on, we have the childcare support policy as well, and this was launched in the COVID times. But largely, the idea was to take care of parental counseling, coaching, flexible work timings for parents, really giving them a virtual option to take care of their children, whether it's via summer camps, whether it's via childminders, whether it's just giving complete childcare support, one-to-one caregiver service as well, for people who were open to have a person in their house. The tie-ups and subsidies exist. Again, it's gender agnostic. It's inclusive of all employees and not just the women in our organization. It's been a huge success. We've got very, very good feedback from our employees on this entire piece in terms of how we've been able to take care of families, inclusion, even in tougher times like COVID. Moving on, I think the idea was really to call out that we've been able to do all of this with strong fundamentals in place, right? So, of course, we've been able to raise the bar in talent and diversity. Looking at the entire PepsiCo way, which is our range of behaviors that we call it, it's the company DNA. We've been able to look at prevention of sexual harassment and and our policies have been pretty much embedded in communications. Sorry, give me a second.
I think you can sip some water.
Sorry, one second.
No.
Sorry, I'm back. Just give me a second. Yeah, so, the policies in place pretty much take care of any kind of investigations that need to happen. Of course, equitable pay has been much ahead. I still remember that the first time the conversation of equitable pay actually happened more than a decade ago in our organization. And we pretty much looked at pay across genders, pay across roles. It's not really getting impacted anywhere. We also have an employee assistance program, which is actually inclusive of families and parents. It takes care of any kind of challenging situations. There is an anonymous calling number. There's a calling number, and people can call in anonymously and discuss their challenges. It's very supportive of any kind of trauma situations, any kind of personal life stage situations whereby people really need a counseling session to take care of themselves. And lastly, I know this is the track for policies, but I did want to mention and touch base upon the programs which have actually helped ensure that the policies are understood by people. We have our employee resource groups in place. There are talent feeder programs which pretty much take care of diversity inclusion across functions. We've been able to take really bold bets on commercial talent as well as supply chain talent, and really look at how we can create that strong internal women pipeline as well as networks. The entire part of really creating the role models, right? I mean, the first we have a women plant manager for our largest plant. We have a women unit manager for one of our largest units. It's a woman who leads our entire logistics function. So it's about creating the role models, creating the places at the right, at the right opportunities, and really showing the organization that we care and it's inclusive across, unconventional roles as well. We've been able to create a very strong and impactful community program in terms of which also touches upon the employee engagement piece. So as an employee, if I put in an X number of hours for my own learning, those hours are being converted to community training hours for women and girl children in the community. So it's a very impactful learning program, but now it's more of an employee engagement program and not just a community program. So it's been done in a very different way. And we, of course, have the typical focused social connects, women development and mentoring programs. We've been able to create that right bifurcation that, it's how much are we stressing on the women development as well. So these are just basics, how we ensure the focus on talent and really have been able to take care of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organization. How does this impact? It's led to strong results, and I think the chart pretty much says it out there. It's a huge increase in the women representation overall. I feel proud to say that we have been able to make our women representation in leadership double of what we had earlier. We now have double-digit representation for women in sales and supply chain across all levels. And we've been able to improve our inclusion index, which is measured by our internal org health survey, to ensure that the experience of men and women is pretty much the same. It's the lowest ever difference this year. It's only just a 1 point difference. And that pretty much calls out on how the experience is taken care across both genders. There's no really difference. That's pretty much what I had to share. I'm sorry for the coughing thing that just happened, but yeah.
Not at all. I think that's very natural. But thank you, Tarishi, for taking us through this presentation. Okay. I just want to take one question. Actually, this is a repeat question, but I found this very interesting. So I will just like to get your view on this.
Sure.
It's like on the attrition higher for women, as per R&D, single women have more mental health issues. Any innovative practices around mental health or something?
Yeah, so we've actually been able to take care of our mental well-being. We've been really focused on that this past year. And we have a whole agenda called PepFit. It pretty much takes care of our own wellness. And that has a very high focus on women as well for this year. But that's been inclusive of both genders in the past year. We've been encouraging people to take care of their financial fitness, physical fitness. And if I give you an example, we have STEPS challenge, which is run globally to ensure that people try and take care of the physical fitness. Your question is more about mental wellness. And we've been able to take care of that via counseling sessions. We had focus sessions during the phase of COVID for people who wanted to seek those, as well as the just awareness sessions of how people can take care of themselves they've happened weekly, and they've happened at dedicated time slots. So people have been able to block the time and really take care of that. We have a tie-up with Marsh, which helps us get the best connects to actually take care of who should be doing the sessions. And that's really helped us create that focus on mental wellness as well as physical wellness for people who can take out the time and really listen to the experts. I hope that answers.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute this time. Okay. Can I take the next question?
Sure.
Okay. So the next question is around when you are building a new policies, women-friendly policies, how much involvement do you expect or you take from male employees? How much do you include buy-in from them?
Okay, so I'll be very honest about this, okay? Whenever we look at a new policy, the first lens that I, as the TM lead, have always had is I cannot be biased. So if you cannot be biased against a woman, you can't be biased towards a woman. It's about an equitable world that you're trying to create, right? So you can't create a situation that men start saying that it's a women's world, right? So it needs to be inclusive of all, which is why, if I give an example, the virtual childcare services, we take special pride in that, honestly, because that takes care of parents. it takes care of parents agnostic of your gender. And that option is there for everyone. In fact, even today, if there is something that we are trying to launch for, say, our women employees, our lens is always that, okay, can we give it to our men employees, partners, or spouses? And we have been inclusive of partners as well. So it's really, up to them on how you want to use it. Even the mental wellness sessions, for an example, if, say, something was very women specific, we ensure that we are sending it all India. One, not to hide it. Second, to let them know that why don't you get the women in your family included, and really let them also hear it. Then we realize that, okay, the challenges are there, and that's how you create that support in the ecosystem. Because, ultimately a man sees it at their own household as well, right? So that's the idea. Get them involved. The more we get them involved, the more buy-in we have. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Tarishi. Thank you for taking for all questions. Thank you so much. And still stay tuned for our Diversity Awards Gala 2, which is happening sharp at 4:30 p.m.
Sure.
Okay, it's time to move to our next speaker. Okay. And we will be back sharp at 3 o'clock. Sorry for the inconvenience, but we are just waiting for our next speaker to join, and we will be joined in just another 5 minutes. Stay tuned, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Pradeep. Hello, am I audible?
Hi, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Okay. Can we start with the session?
Certainly. Can I share my screen? If it's...
Just a moment, I will just introduce you to our attendees, audience, and you can just take over from there. Okay, so let's start with our next session. And now we have with us Pradeep Chavda, Human Resource Director, India, Sodexo India Service Private Limited. Thank you, Pradeep, for joining. Just give me a moment so that I can spotlight you. Yeah, stage is all yours, Pradeep.
Thank you, everyone. I'm delighted to see all of you on this amazing event. And I'm also feeling thankful and delighted to share some of the policies and practices of Sodexo. So I'm sharing my screen. Hope it is visible. And
yeah, it's visible.
Thank you. So Sodexo, we are a global company and present in almost 88 countries. And diversity and inclusion has been an integral part of Sodexo since almost 50, 60 years of our existence. In fact, our founder and our current chairwoman herself is Sophie, and she's a women leader who is leading the entire organization. And hence, the diversity and equity is integral part of the organization. It is in the core DNA of the company. Let me quickly brief you about how in India the journey started. So in 1997, we started our journey in India. We became a facility management company, and now we are India's largest food manufacturing company. Also, we started our technical services in India, and we recently reorganized ourselves, and we actually got from a geography to the strategic unit kind of a framework. Sodexo has 1,400 plus sites, 43,000 plus employees, and including outsourced employees, we have 50,000 plus employees. We actually are in 4 major businesses, which is corporate service, healthcare, education, energy, and resources. Most of the IT firms, most of the auto sector, manufacturing firm, most of the hospitals, education institute, international universities. Sodexo is, Sodexo provides the services, and that incorporates to almost 450 clients and 1 million customers we serve every day. We have, Sodexo HR as well as the leadership is not only committed to the women or gender balance overall in the organization, but Sodexo supply chain department is also committed towards the gender diversity. And just to share that 300 plus women entrepreneurs are connected with our supply chain department, supplying vegetables, supplying honey bees. We have a special program for empowering women to grow vegetables, to grow honey, and also the seeding program, the selling program. So many such programs are there which are associated with supply chain department, and we have 300 plus women who are supporting us in not only in the journey of a diversity for employees, but as partner also they are supporting us. Additionally, if we have a good gender balance and if we have a good culture in the organization, the engagement scores will no doubt be better. And Sodexo engagement score is 92.6%, and we use the AccelHERate framework in terms of our engagement. Spirit of Inclusion program, which is mandatory for all the managers in the company. Most of the companies have new manager program, so anyone become manager, they need to go through certain set of initiatives. For Sodexo, one of the most mandatory program is Spirit of Inclusion, and every manager, men or women, or even other gender, they need to go through the program. And this program ensures that they are sensitized towards the inclusive culture and inclusive spirit they need to demonstrate as a manager. There are a lot of biases are there around gender, around people with special ability, or around trans people and many other people. And this particular program addresses eliminating such biases. And every manager needs to be certified under this as part of our policy to become a manager. One of the major requirements to become a manager. While we are appreciated in many of the national and international forums for various diversity initiatives for Sodexo India, I would like to also share that we have specially able people apprentice program, we have specially able people recruitment program, we have unique shift arrangements, we have unique a travel arrangement for them. We have some of the NGOs and partners who constantly gives us not only trained women talent, but also people with special ability and people and trans people in our organization. So the company objective is not just to just to give the numbers higher women talent. We are actually creating an entire ecosystem by which skilled women employees are trained by our NGO partners. There are around 13 NGO partners associated with us, and we use predictive hiring model by which they get to know that what is our hiring plan for coming 3 months, coming 6 months and 9 months, and basis on that they train women into technical jobs. Example, electrical, plumbing, and many such kind of job which we are into blue collar, as well as some of the people with special abilities. While suppose some of them have amputated leg, but it doesn't mean that they cannot do the job. In fact, they can do far more better job than us. Example, as a cashier, because they don't need to move from the place. So we have a lot of curated jobs for specially able people, and they are supported by these NGOs in terms of trainings and everything, and then we hire from them. So it is not just force fitting the gender or specially able people, but it is also providing an ecosystem which helps in supporting and skilling the people. We are India's largest recruiter. We hire 23,000 people every year with 500,000 plus training mandates. And we are among the top 50 companies, best companies in India in terms of best employer. This is as for the Time Accent survey, as well as 98% of the women, they have access to the HR system. So we have given app access to all the women employees, and they are actively using it. So you will probably find somebody in a very remote location in a desert of Rajasthan, a women employee is connected with HR team, and if any point of time they need support from HR, we have something called SOS button on the app. So even if they are at home, they are at work, they are traveling in the transit, that they get stuck or they feel unsafe, they can press the SOS button. We arrange for ambulances and police services or some kind of support through our admin department. So our technology, HR technology, is accessible to all the women employees so that they feel safe, they feel empowered in the organization. We have 109 train and hire partners. They digitally connect with our on our IGP portals, and they constantly get to know about jobs available in Sodexo for women employees and many other such groups. So just to give you a perspective, most of the companies have IGP portals, but it is accessible to internal employees only. But our IGP portal is accessible to NGOs also and to train and hire partners, so that they constantly upload resumes in this portal, and we constantly get a flow of women employees in our organization. And we have 4 gender networks. So these are the networks led by a senior women leader. Most of the time it is a business head of the company, and they have a specific agenda around succession planning and career growth of the women. And I will talk about that a little later. Needless to mention that the diversity commitment comes from the top. And Sophie, as I mentioned, is our chairwoman for Sodexo. And these are commitments which are non-negotiable and ensured that it is fully ingrained in the culture of Sodexo. And that's the reason we are the most preferred brand for LGBT and all other employee-related network, not only in India, but globally also. And that has been consistently happening since 5 to 6 years. We have been awarded as a global company. We are actually top 19 companies globally in terms of manpower and many other areas. And hence, many of these employees look forward for careers in Sodexo. And hence, it is important that we we remain present, and we share our best practices with the world. In fact, we have signed with UN ILO also in our commitment towards gender diversity and many other elements. So we can share that also with the team. Some of the policies, maybe quickly sharing with you, that we have an equal slate policy. So all the recruiters have a target that if one position is vacant, you need to have a men and a women candidate, both. And then the final shortlisting will happen. We have not followed a practice of mandatory hiring women or something. We are following a practice of skilling women and hiring them on a merit basis, because hiring a particular gender or hiring people with disability or any other such thing is not only good to do, but it is business imperative, because it is benefiting us into business, and we are not doing any favor to a particular gender, because we are using equal slate and we are using a merit-based process to hire women employees in the organization. 150% of the referral bonus if you refer a women candidate. We have a program called Pragati, which constantly tracks and monitors the gender balance across the sites. So we have 1100 plus profit centers, or sites we call it, in approximately 800 and 900 cities of India. And each site has men and women employees there. But Project Pragati ensures that there is a good gender balance across the board. Spouse hiring, many companies don't entertain spouse hiring, but in Sodexo, we have every month, we are hiring 40 to 60 husband-wife together in our company. And they work together, their earnings are increased, while we ensure that there is no conflict of interest. They are in different departments, different managers. But if we have a will, we can certainly do that. And there is a proper policy of spouse hiring in the organization. Second career for the women. So we have host of gig workers, and we have part-time women workers who do not want to work full-time, but they can just dedicate 1 or 2 or 5 hours or 6 hours of the day, depending upon. So one can opt for such part-time jobs and and actually make their careers, and they can take care of their social and other obligations also, or even if they have their own leisure agreements, arrangements, probably fine. POSH, or sexual harassment training and committee, is non-negotiable. It is as per the law. Gender neutral job title. So many of you would have heard that the title called office boy or pantry boy. So we are into hospitality and hotel management. So you would have heard these kind of titles. These titles are gender biased titles, leading to a mindset among the managers that only boy has to be hired. So we, not only in Sodexo, but we also influence our competitive partner to have a gender neutral designations, like pantry assistants or office assistant. The moment we change our titles, we started hiring women into these jobs. And that is the power of HR policies and procedure. If we don't have the right policy framework, whatever effort we do, we will not be able to generate that, that inclusive culture which is required in the organization. Hence, it has to be seen from policy perspective also. For self-defense of the women, there are sessions which are done to train them. And also the flexibility policy allows employees to digitally, as well as contacting HR, choose various kind of employment available in the organization, and they can apply for those jobs. Gender network in the organization is active since 2011. And as I mentioned, there are 4 networks in entire India. And as part of our policy, there are some guidelines and governance around succession of the women, around career development of the women, around training programs of the women. And these networks are not headed by HR department. These are headed by the business head, who herself is a woman and as a women leader. Gender ambassador, this is a program of people who constantly advocate the gender diversity and gender culture, gender-friendly culture across the board. So these are HR's additional added arms, and they constantly create that culture and fosters the environment of inclusive culture. Mentorship program for women leader. There are some publications which continuously publicize on various sites. I would certainly like to talk about the Beyond Bias program. Beyond Bias program is a formal one-day program wherein all the managers are trained on a typical bias which we have. Example, only person with disability can only do this job, or trans people can only do this job, or women can only do this job. These biases which we have in our mind needs to be ironed out and needs to be eliminated. And it is non-negotiable in Sodexo. Everyone needs to be trained on beyond bias and ensure that they do not have a bias in their mind while recruiting, while growing women talent in the organization. And governance by business leader and CHRO myself ensures that all these policies and procedures are followed in a proper manner. Unless and until the leadership performance bonus is not linked with the gender balance, the commitment doesn't come. Unfortunately, while many of you would debate on it, but it is true. And we need to have the reward framework attached with the gender balance. And most of the leaders have taken their performance bonuses and ensure that they improve the gender balance. Angel sites are the programs and reward and recognition program where the women ratio is 40 to 60%, or the 100% of the site is managed by women. So all the women managing the site, we certify them as angel sites. Similarly, best recruiters and best profit center head recognitions are also given for people who are promoting the gender balance. Quickly coming to the women-friendly uniform and safety shoes, most of us would not imagine or would not be aware that a lot of blue-collar women employees do not like wearing shorts and pants because of the cultural and social reasons. And we need to be mindful and respectful to the culture they come from. And hence the women-friendly uniform and safety shoes comes, wherein we respect the culture, religion, and many other matters, the background which they come from, and we allow them to grow and evolve in the organization and not just force fit them with the uniform which is standard available. Similarly, succession management and growth is tracked for all the women employees. Some of the digital initiatives supported to the women, 100% women employees are accessing our Android and iOS HR app. SOS button, I already spoke with you. There are mobile courses and training program for women. By the way, the women training programs are not only for the women employees, but for their kids also we have programs. And for kids, we have education guide. So suppose we have so many powerful stories in the organization where a women employee is a single mother having 3 kids, got benefited because they want to know that if I want to make my son or daughter as aeronautical engineer or automobile engineer, what universities, what courses are available. And we have a EAP, Employee Assistance Program portal and partner available and counselors available to guide our women employees to navigate their kids' education career also. And this is 24/7 available in 8 different languages. Families are trained on mobile platform, including English speaking courses, job portals, job alerts for their career progression. NGOs have the access to the HR, Sodexo HR job portal so that they become inclusive part of Sodexo and constantly supply us the women talent. And monthly pay parity report sign up. So all the pay parity report are signed every month by the CHRO, which is myself. And we ensure that women and men, there is no large pay parity or there is zero pay parity, and they are paid equally for their wages. So together is another program wherein we reach out to gender diversity, gender ambassador and gender network and career development initiatives. I would like to talk about this win back program. So any women employee who leaves the Sodexo for any reason, for social or because in COVID, we lost some of the women employees because their families forced them to leave the organization and take care of the family. And this is a very unfortunate part of our society. But we need to accept the fact and we need to evolve and we need to support so that we have an inclusive environment. So all those women employees are connected with us. We have 40,000 women employees. Even after leaving Sodexo, they are connected on a alumni portal. And this is a mobile app. They can access Sodexo, they can withdraw their provident fund, and they can join us back. And I'm so delighted to share that most and many of the employees are willing to join us back. In fact, 82% of the employees, they are willing to join us back after their breaks or some of their social constraint they have. They want to complete that and they want to join us back. So unless and until we don't value and we don't stay connected with employees who already left us, we will be again left behind, and we will lose a trained talent who is already aware about the Sodexo ways of working, who has been trained on chemicals and technical training, and all those things will be wasted. But we can always get them back into the organization through a win-back program. These are the family hiring programs, which we have, wherein the husband and wives are hired. So I'm just highlighting some of the major policies and practices which enables us to be a truly gender diverse organization and create the right kind of culture, which is an inclusive culture, and also respecting all the genders. I'm not saying that we need to do something special for women employees, but what we need to do is we need to empower, we need to enable, and the policies and processes should be in the right direction so that whether women employees or people with disability or even trans people, they grow and they develop themselves on their own capabilities, and we don't do any favor to them. So that's all for from my side. Thank you very much, and I'm opening it for Q&A, and I've just given 1 minute extra for Q&A.
Thank you, Pradeep, for taking us to the presentation. So one part where you said, now we want back in that returning program deck, it was fish with a bowl and we want back. That was really, because it's usually I want to get back to work, and you said that it was like we want. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to our Q&A round. So can I take the first question? Okay, the first question is from Aisha. So she asks, how do you ensure buy-in from male employees when creating policies for women employees?
Okay. See, there is a gender network study which has been done by Sodexo, wherein 50,000 managers across the geography was part of the survey. This survey is available on Google. It is a public document, so please go and refer to it. 2020 also we did this survey again. So 50,000 profit centers were part of this research, wherein we found that if we have the right gender balance, which is 40 to 60% women in the organization, the site and the profit center has 6 to 7 KPIs. They are excelling. Example, profitability, the safety of the site, then revenue, client engagement score, employee engagement score. So there are 7 KPIs they are exceeding. So all the men counterpart, they now understand, and they have understood that it is not a good thing to do to hire women, but it is a business imperative that there is a direct business benefit to have more and more women in the organization, because it brings diversity, it brings diverse product, it gives a better services to our consumer. So our gender diversity study is the framework which is referred by all the managers. See, we can't convince them that no, we need to have more women. That is not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is put a proper research in place. That research is available on Google. Please, just type Sodexo gender diversity research, and this is the base of men employees getting convinced that it is a business case to hire more and more women employees.
I'm surely going to take a look at that thing. Please. Okay. I'm taking the next question. Okay, it says, do you feel that we need to move from women-friendly policies to family-friendly policies?
You are absolutely right. And in fact, in the pandemic, I realized that, women, our Sodexo employees, they were not only working 8 hours in the office, but in fact, they were later working 8 hours in their families also. And, somewhere I also strongly feel, and when I correlate with my own mother, I just realized that, women have so much of, inner, I would say, strength to deal with any adversities, and they do not disown the families. Sorry to say that, men disown it. Men also equally are responsible. But the women means family. Okay. And hence, policies, like in our case, we have family hiring policies there, spouse hiring policies there, we have children education guide is also there. We have EAP program, which helps and guides employees, family members also. We have English speaking course and many other courses online available for our women employees and their families also. Many of the companies do not want to invest into the LMS system, which is extended even to the family member, because it costs crores of rupees to the organization. But I absolutely agree with the question that, I think we need to go from women to the family. And if the family element is bought into the organization, then probably, we are engaging women more into the jobs. And when women are engaged in the organization, I think nobody can stop the growth of the organization.
Thank you, Pradeep, for taking those questions. It's time to move to our next speaker, but would request you to stay tuned for our Diversity Awards Gala at 4:30 p.m.
Certainly, I'll be delighted to stay, and really thankful to all of you for patient listening, and appreciate and regret in case I have not been able to answer any question particularly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, it's time to move for our final speaker of the day, Jyotsna Malhotra. And we have Jyotsna Malhotra with us. Just a moment. Welcome, Jyotsna.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Hope so.
Yeah. So just let me take a moment and introduce you to our attendees. So,
and I think you will also have to give me screen share rights.
Screen share rights. Just let me check if I have received your presentation or not. Just give me a moment, no? Jyotsna, you will be sharing your screen. I will just need to give you.
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
Hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Just give me a moment. So we are here with our final speaker of the day, Jyotsna Malhotra, Head Employee Engagement Culture, DNI TVS Motor Company. Welcome to AccelHERate 2022, Jyotsna, and the stage is all yours. Just a moment, I will just spotlight you.
Good afternoon, everyone. While Ekta does what she wants to, I will start with what I wish to speak. I am representing TVS Motor Company here, but the initiatives that I'm going to share here are not only specific to what D&I team has done. It's the initiatives that are performed by the whole organization, especially the leadership of the organization, as well as various teams within HR. So it's not only D&I, it's talent acquisition, it's performance management, it's talent management, it's L&D teams who have come together to make this happen for the organization. And thank you, Jobs for Her, for giving us this opportunity. So what you see on screen is the objective of D&I. While we talk about the maturity model of any D&I setup in an organization, it's very important to know where you stand. And we started to look at our journey from the very beginning, how we were around 10 years back, sticking only to compliance subjects, moving on to equal opportunity, moving on to belonging, inclusion, and transformation. And it was really heartening to see that we had different pockets within the organization where many of the clusters were sitting at the transformational part of the journey, but there were still some elements where compliance and equal opportunity existed, but had to be more enforced with the help of senior leaders. And at each cluster, we had to take specific interventions and specific initiatives and policies to ensure that we can bring everybody together at a common platform with a common objective of having more innovation, more growth within the organization. While we move ahead to diversity focus in the organization, I also wish to share that the need was overall to have a change in mindset towards diversity in pockets like culture building, policies around ease of working, and having more women in the leadership roles, and at the same time preparing our existing women in the organization for leadership through offering them mentoring and coaching, career growth, and building reach out groups and programs. So what you see on screen are diversity focus for the organization right now, which is majorly around gender, persons with disability, and generational diversity. But at the same time, when we look at the phase where our organization, TVS Motor Company, is today, being an Indian organization that has grown globally with presence in over 63 plus countries across the globe, collaboration with BMW, Norton, and e-bike, which is a Swiss company. Regional and national diversity is one more, few more spots we are really cautious about right now and watchful about at this point of time in our journey in D&I space. So all the policies that we worked on were majorly dragged around the employee life cycle. When we say employee life cycle, we start from the very beginning, which starts from the recruitment and employee value, building an employee value proposition for somebody who's looking to join the organization. So starting from recruitment to onboarding to performance management, L&D, reward recognition, talent management, all of this could happen only from the commitment from senior leadership, mechanism, and continuous tracking and mechanism at each level to understand where we are and what we exactly need to do to reach where we aim to in terms of not only numbers, but having a more inclusive ecosystem. It was extremely important to know the scope of work we wish to target in each window. Establishing employee life cycle helped us perform focused work in the space with looking at specific areas for improvement. The idea was to screen through each process and build inclusion as a business value chain and culture, with a theme to have an inclusive ecosystem for current as well as future diversities that will come into the organization, right, and can coexist and get nurtured. So coming specific to recruitment, the kind of policies we looked at was shortlisting, distribution, measure at each stage. So each stage of recruitment, shortlisting was happening. We wanted to ensure that there is an equal representation that is offered to both the genders. Gender intelligence trained panel could only sit for recruitment. Deliberate efforts in maintaining equilibrium in hiring, especially focusing on the kind of salaries that were getting offered, the kind of offers that were getting rolled out, the kind of benefits that were getting rolled out as part of relocation allowance and other elements. This is one Unnati program, which is a second career program for women professionals, which is open to both men and open to both women who have taken a gap, plus ex-employees of TVS Motor Company who wish to come back to the organization. So the program is tailored and designed in a manner which offers extreme level of flexibility to employees. It could be hourly basis if the employee wants to return back, or a woman employee wishes to come back to work. They can come as a gig worker, they can come on as a consultant on a half-day basis, fully work from home. So the options are across the band depending on what kind of offering the participant is looking for, and is tailored accordingly. Definitely merit comes first, and the program is based on mentoring and coaching. So initial onboarding program part of the Unnati is majorly upskilling the participant to meet the requirements of the job, as well as mentoring them to bring their confidence level back at par where they were before they left the professional workspace. Onboarding plays a very vital role when we talk about bringing somebody into the organization. So the compliance elements of D&I are 100% taken care of at the onboarding stage itself. Introduction, so we have e-modules on POSH, we have e-modules of Code of Conduct, where employees are supposed to 100% take at the stage of onboarding itself. Introduction to concept of inclusion and gender intelligence are also taken care of at the onboarding stage itself. Mentoring for Unnati, second career women candidates, and sensitization for the managers as well as team members is a mandatory part before the candidate actually fully comes on board as an employee. All these initiatives have to happen. Coming to performance management, while an employee is on maternity leave, a default rating is given to the employee to ensure that there is no parity happening. At times we have seen in various organizations that when the employee is away, there is a rating that is bell curve driven and trying to pull down the employee, and that's where this default rating has been very successfully utilized by managers and the HR leaders to keep a check on how we are performing. Flag out on disappropriate distribution of performance rating. So this is a check that is performed by all leaders in the organization as well as HR representatives. When the moderations are happening, generally teams are sitting together, and this check is done to ensure that there is no disappropriation happening based on gender. When it comes to learning and development, proportionate distribution for higher education and career development workshops. So this means that, for example, there is a certain percentage of women in a team. So are we offering the similar percentage of opportunities to women for learning and development and growth in the organization? These checks help us keep a balance in terms of how we are offering the opportunities to employees in the organization. Inclusion becomes a vital element in learning initiatives, especially behavior-related initiatives when it comes to manager capability development, when it comes to enabling manager initiatives around sensitization, around building an inclusive ecosystem for employees as part of the teams. Women leadership development through mentoring and coaching. So there's a program called Flying Lessons, and we have been running it for the last 2 years. We have had close to 50 women who have undergone this program and have benefited through it. Senior members from the organization become their mentors and help them grow in the organization, find a path for their own career development. And coaching is provided by an external trainer who helps them find their paths, who helps them overcome the challenges that they are facing in the organization and also at their personal development front. Culture building through sensitization of managers and teams is a continuous exercise. So every year, annually, we are covering close to 300 managers where we ensure that we build a culture where inclusion is the major element. Why we say inclusion? Because we want to build an ecosystem where not only this level of diversity, but even the future levels of diversity that we are going to target are able to coexist. Even at reward and recognition, representation nomination is monitored. Representation, external forums, external representation in international assignments is monitored. Talent management front, where is a proportionate representation in role change, how they are growing in the organization, are they part of the future pipeline, future leadership pipeline in the organization is constantly monitored. So why we are doing this? Majorly because we saw that there was a need to have more women in the leadership roles, and that's where we realized that we need to do it more closely and monitor these initiatives. So what we looked at was around the employee life cycle, but at the same time we realized that this is not enough. There are constantly supporting policies that need to be worked on. And what you're going to see now, I think most of the participants before me have touched upon these policies, but there will be some specifics where even families are getting involved in the EAP programs, in cultural initiatives, in sports initiatives, where they become part of the TVS family. Health and well-being plays a very vital role when we talk about policies in general at TVS for women. So maternity is one area where a smoothened onboarding post-maternity, 30-week maternity leave, lactation breaks, fully equipped, professionally managed crutch for both men and women is available on campus. Physical and psychological well-being. So there are doctors available on all our campus locations where employees, men and women and their family members are welcome to be part of. Pre and post maternity guidance is available to women employees as well as spouses of male employees, where they can come and have their consultation from the doctors on board. Employee Assistance Program offers a 24/7 support, psychological well-being. So this Employee Assistance Program covers like psychological well-being window, but at the same time, career development, looking at your confidence building, personal development space as well. Insurance. So this is a unique policy that we have on insurance where not only the employee themselves and their immediate family, their parents as well as their in-laws are getting covered. So for a woman employee, covering their in-laws for an insurance is one of the unique features that we have as part of our insurance policy. Fertility treatment is also covered for both men and women as part of the insurance policy. When it comes to travel, during travel, women employees are eligible for an enhanced travel provision and emergency services where they can, over and above their ban, they can go ahead and avail those travel provisions. Pick up and drop around the clock is available for employees where they can choose the time they want to come to office, and the facilities are available for them. Safety cabs are available for traveling for women with escorts in odd hours. Other support systems are like concierge are available, employee loans are available, hybrid working policy is available, which allows employees to avail work from home at any point of time, which allows women employees to avail half-day working, half-day at home, those kind of facilities as well. Flexibility to the highest extent, especially to Unnati. I think I did mention about this in the previous slide on Unnati program, where we are offering gig working to women employees who are second career professionals, returners, and virtual childcare services. So during pandemic, it got initiated, and we are thinking of continuing the services where when the women are working from home or even the men are working from home, there are services virtually available for their children who can be provided with guidance from the professional services that are available for them. So what benefits we got from this work that we have done over the years? So we participated in Best Companies for Women in India, and 2 years consecutively we have got these awards. And recently we also got awarded for Most Inclusive Companies Index Exemplar Award as well. How do we measure it? We measure it through our employee engagement survey. So when we are looking at the diversity scores for the employee engagement through all the initiatives over the years that we have taken, we saw a hike of 17% specific to diversity engagement scores that happen. And similarly, at the same time, we also saw that women employees were majorly feeling empowered in the organization, where 80% of the women said that my opinions and ideas seem to count. My work goals related to organization goals was rated by 92% of the women. Safety and security are considered important at TVS was given by 92% of women in comparison to industry average, which was 62, 76, and 88 respectively. So my answer to everything is that there is no common answer, no common policy that will be applicable to all. So we are open to reasonable accommodation. We are open to look at, as an organization, we are open to look at, the requirements that are specific to individuals, where we go beyond, what is written in the policy and look at the specific cases where, childcare leave is required, or where sabbatical is required, or where specific, consideration is required as per the requirement of the individual employee. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for taking us through this presentation and family-friendly and women-friendly policies of TVS Motors. Can we start with our Q&A round? Okay, the first question is for what is more important for corporate India, equality or equity?
Both are equally important. We can't just say that equality is important, equity is important, and that is why TVS is emphasizing on building an ecosystem. So the ecosystem means that while we work on creating an ecosystem for 17% of the population, we cannot leave behind remaining 83% of the population. And that's why an inclusive ecosystem is the answer to every such kind of a situation. Yes, it's important to focus on specific spaces like building a leadership pipeline for women employees where focused work can happen. Parallelly, there is a requirement for building a culture where women acceptance as leaders has to happen. Yes, focused work can happen in that space, but both are equally important is my answer to this question. Sorry, Ekta, you are not audible.
Sorry, so sorry.
No problem.
Okay, moving to our next question. So, Divya asks, how is diversity, equality, and inclusiveness reflected in the present way of doing business in your company?
So I think I did share that at each level, we are trying to proportionately watch for how, at each stage, starting from recruitment till promotions, till talent management level, how the performance is getting measured, how the overall presence of women is getting measured at various stages. And that's where equality becomes, very visually appearing, because when the audits are happening, from the business leaders, from the HR representatives who are HR business partners and head of HR, sitting in each moderation forum and looking at how equality, how proportionate representation of women is happening. That's where equality gets answered. But at the same time, when we are targeting increase in number of women in the organization, we are watchful of that disproportionate representation continues to happen. And yes, there's a deliberate effort from TVS Motor Company to target 20%, where we are close to 12% right now organization-wide. And if we exclude sales and service, we are close to 17% in the organization. And 20% is the target across the organization in next 2 years.
Okay. We have one question or suggestion, a view from Tanya Rat. She asks, what is default rating for women on maternity leave? Little more explanation on that, please.
So default rating for women on maternity leave is valued performer, where they are given a rating which is equivalent to a good performance in the organization. So there are various bands of evaluating the performance of the individual. It's a band of good performance. So in an extreme situation where we are watchful that the woman has performed in the organization and goes beyond this value of good performance, over there exceptional cases are taken, and an exemplary performer rating is also offered to such women.
Okay, thank you. I think I will take just last question, because you had explained something related to this. That's why I'm taking this question. Do you do a survey or focus group study before determining the terms of the policies? How much are the employees involved in this process? Second part of the question.
Absolutely. We do a study. We have a women resource group and we have our managers on board who help us answer various questions. So when we are doing women resource group interactions, we do share with them what are the initiatives that we are going to work on in near future. And when we have our interactions with the managers while their sensitization workshops are happening, we do ask them their inputs on various areas that they want some improvement, or the areas, it's a two-way communication while the training workshops are happening for managers, where we tell them what are the behavioral interventions, and they also give us the inputs in terms of what kind of change they want to happen in the ecosystem or from the women's side as well. Possibly they may answer in a way that we want women to volunteer for more, asking for more challenging assignments. We don't watch that volunteer. So I'm just giving you an example of the kind of scenarios. So keeping these two-way kind of communications happening, we do get inputs from both the sides. And at the same time, we conduct our annual surveys specific to women, where we ask them on various aspects, do you need support on what areas, where mentoring and coaching appeared, and we did a focus work. This survey result was 2 years back. And at the same time, we also heard from them in terms of what kind of support they require, and various policies that you looked at in my presentation. The inputs were from those specific inputs that we received from women. So this is a two-way communication that continues to happen round the year. And this data is put together during our interactions with managers, as well as leaders, as well as women folk in the organization.
Okay. Thank you for taking all those questions, Jyotsna.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ekta. And thank you
Okay.
to Jobs for Her for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Oh,